Marc Jackson, NBC Sports Philadelphia, Sixers pre- and post-game analyst, set to join us live here on the Sports Bash to talk a little bit more about what happened yesterday. Now that the dust has settled, they'll play tonight against Denver. We'll have the game for you live on 97.3 ESPN, and we'll get his take on it as the Sixers make, obviously, the big move to go out and get Tobias Harris and more. So Fultz no longer here. We'll get all of Mark's musings on that right now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Mark, welcome back, man. How you been?
I've been outstanding, fellas. How are y'all?
We're all good. And, man, yesterday was chaotic. 2:30 in the morning, you get the Tobias Harris news, followed up with a couple of other moves, and ending up with Markelle Fultz being moved. Let's go back to 2:30 in the morning when the Woj bomb came out with Tobias Harris, Boban, and Mike Scott coming to Philly, Landry, Wilson, and Muscala and picks heading to L.A. What do you think about the way Elton Brand was able to get that deal done?
I love the way he was creeping late at night and got a deal done. Good job by the 76 organization and my boy Elton Brand. That was a major move for the 76ers, not just picking up a true starting power forward and another young piece of a nucleus that can be with this team for a long run. But don't forget about the big fella Boban, probably the most efficient scorer in the history of the NBA, other than Wood, of course. But they bought Helmet, they bought Michael Scott, so they got a great starting power forward. They got a backup center who can give you 10 minutes, just 10 minutes, and he gives you 10 points and 5 rebounds. And they got another guy who can help fill up that roster in Mike Scott. Yeah. Good trade for the Sixers with the low Clippers.
Okay, so let's go on and further that a little bit. Mike Scott, James Ennis, Jonathan Simmons, they all seem like switchable defenders that can go out and guard the line. That, to me, is what stood out about yesterday.
Exactly. They got guys that can guard. And other than Simmons, Mike Scott, in this case, you shoot the three with regularity. Simmons is kind of inconsistent up and down with it, but they added some shooting. These guys are 3 and D kind of players. They have really did a good job filling out their roster in the bench play.
So when you look at one thing we were talking about, Mark, ahead of time before you got on was the departure of Markelle Fultz, and it did come down to the wire. Did you guys have any inkling that something like this was in the works, or were you kind of taken by surprise like the rest of us?
Was I surprised? No. I think when the agent called and said, listen, Fultz is not going to practice or play in games until we see a specialist, I'm like, okay, when a specialist in 2 weeks. When this agent did that, I thought it was over. I thought Elton and the organization was done. I thought they was done. He was off the Markelle Fultz bandwagon, and I thought it was time for a clean slate for him to move on.
Mark, do you think that there is a sense of not relief, but just that this story isn't around? And I know that the players really welcomed Markelle and supported him, so this is not a personal thing about Markelle Fultz being gone, but the story and that just hovering around the team. Do you think that there's maybe relief is a good word because it's the story, not the young man that's gone?
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. It's about the story of the shoulder. Is he hurting? Is it mental? What is it? And it probably wouldn't have been as bad if Ben Simmons wasn't here and he could actually move slowly and able to, and when he comes back, actually have the ball majority of the time in his hands. But he needs a clean slate. He needs somewhere where people can be patient. They're not trying to win a championship. He can play. He can make mistakes. He don't have to worry about shooting jump shots. He can just play his game until he gets 100%. And I thought for the 76ers and where they are now, I think they're past that trial and error base. I think they're ready to move on and try to win now. And I think with that being said, I think it was time for him to move on. I think it was time to make a clean slate for him and for the organization. It just didn't work. But like I said again, I really believe that the water hit over the bridge when his agent called and informed the Sixers that he wasn't going to practice or play until he sees a specialist, which, happily, is 2 weeks from that current time. that's when I think the Sixers are off the bandwagon.
Yeah, and they get Jonathan Simmons, a first-round pick, which is not going to be a great pick. Let's not toot that thing too much, but they did recoup the first-round pick that they gave away for Harris, and then they got a second-round pick. Were you surprised they got anything of substance for Markelle?
I'm surprised they got any first-round pick. I really was.
Now, I heard Coach say this morning that he said that Orlando felt that there was competition to get Fultz. So, in other words, there were teams out there that, I said this all along, Mark, teams were willing to take a shot because of the talent they saw. This guy could score. He defended. The one thing he didn't show was this shot that he showed in college. But everything else, he could have been a productive player even without the shot, it seemed like.
I agree with you. I'm 100% on board with you. I think now in today's age, again, we got to shoot the three, and with him struggling with his health issues, I really believe that was the culprit that forced him to get moved. Because if he had, let's just say hypothetically speaking, if he had got drafted by Orlando, he could have went through all this and had time to get completely healthy, had time to come back. It hurts again. Okay, go back out so you get completely clear. He had the time, but here we was on a process. We're tired of the process. We're tired of losing. We want to win now. And when the couple of shots he had, when he like the one time he double clutched the foul line, I thought we just gonna be all over that. We're just gonna be all over that. And this kid mentally, he's 19. He's a different kind of 19 from Ben Simmons. He's not as advanced mentally as Ben Simmons is. I thought this would affect him. So I think that this guy was the perfect pick for them when they took him. He was a guard who could handle the ball, play off the ball, he could shoot, defend, drive. He was a legit number one pick. Then this crazy injury happened, and people forget about how talented he was. And that's what people forget. But this guy is a real talent.
Yeah, Mark, I had problems. You know, for me, I could not judge what I saw here because I never saw the guy that you saw in college here. Now, if he was the guy in college, he just was shooting threes away and just clanking, that's a different story. But I never saw the guy that we saw on film that they drafted number one, and that's why I was hesitant to just cut ties and give up on him. Now, I understand it, and I think they got enough for him. Me, personally, I probably would have held on to him.
Why? You have $15 million on the books next year. You got to max out 4 guys.
I got it. I got monetarily, you're right.
And here's my thing on that, too. Why? And think about it. Brett Brown is really making Ben Simmons to quote-unquote, he is the point guard. Markelle Fultz is a ball-dominant point guard. After I started seeing the way coaches really, okay, he's not a point forward, he's a real point guard. Once that writing was on the wall, you had to see that him and Markelle Fultz couldn't play together. This year they can patch some minutes in here and there, but you got to see eventually somebody got to go. And right now they decided that Fultz is the one who's out.
Mark, you bring up a very good point, very perceptive point, just about how things were for, a year and a half, it felt like, under Brian Colangelo, and now how things are under Elton Brand, and specifically the synergy that Elton Brand at least is aware of with Brett Brown. These moves are designed to make Brett Brown's life easier, whereas just drafting Markelle Fultz alongside the presence of Ben Simmons makes things a little more difficult for Brett Brown. Just to have that synergy back feels good.
It does. Then a coach can relax a little bit. Going to have to kind of force folks in there, knowing that TJ's playing good, knowing that Ben's the primary ball handler. Okay, but we got to find room for the number one pick. Now, coach can breathe, put the pieces in a proper place, and just get your system around the players that you currently have, and then make the best out of it, and hopefully get to a championship. Because right now, like this roster, I know people say, "Oh, Milwaukee Bucks." I like Nurkic. I like him a lot. He's a very good player to help that team. But Toronto signed Marc Gasol, and I don't mean to jump off to Toronto.
No, go ahead, because I actually have a question about that for you.
Toronto signed Marc Gasol. People say, "Oh, he got a great pick." Do the math. Toronto's playing so well because they started Serge Ibaka at the center, Siakam at the 4. They took Valanciunas off the floor because he wanted to play a different style. I thought that move by Toronto was a panic move. So now you bring Marc Gasol in, who you have to start. He's no Valanciunas. You got to play this big guy 30, 34 minutes a game. So now You have to revamp your style. That made you the second-best team in the league this year defensively. And Marc Gasol is a very good defender, but now you got to change the total way you play to fit Marc Gasol in. And I thought that was a panic move by Toronto, and I think it's going to cost them. I
love it. And that was the best point about the whole trade that's so undervalued is Serge Ibaka and what they were able to do up in Toronto. I agree. I think it makes them weaker. I don't think it makes them necessarily like worse, but at least – and Wright is a guy that they at least used in key depth positions. So I don't know why they made that move. And now you look at – we all know Indiana and with what happened with Oladipo. Boston still has clouds and issues hovering around them. Milwaukee is Milwaukee, and I think that's really the team that you look at. But even them, with the absence of Thon Maker, Mark, in the postseason, they're going to have to go small with Giannis at the 5 a lot. Now you have Embiid-Giannis matchup. That might make things easier for Ben Simmons in that game.
Exactly, it does. So if you got Giannis, who is unbelievable, but if you got him trying to guard Joel, he's barbecue chicken times 2. But then if he's guarding Joel, who's guarding Ben?
Right.
Who's going to prevent Ben from getting in? Okay, I'm sorry. Let me bring up something. Now who's going to guard Tobias Harris? Oops, I'm sorry. And so who's going to guard who? You can't clone human beings. It's illegal. You can't clone Giannis.
There's a lot of human trafficking going on, right?
Get that on a promo.
You can't clone him. Think about it.
Mark, what about – okay, so Boston is still – a lot of people think that Boston somehow, some way is going to find its way back to the top. Did what the Sixers did yesterday put them on par with Boston? Are they still behind Boston? Where do you see those two teams? Because many people think that Boston is still the best team in the East.
Listen, on paper, Boston was the best team in the East. But I think the Sixers now with this lineup is a better ball club. And B, it's listen, I don't like what I'm seeing when I watch these Boston games. I don't like the chemistry. I know people are just kind of sacrifice to kind of buy their time, but it's a lot of angry people in that locker room. There's a lot of discourse in that locker room, and you can watch it in their body language during the games. We know Kyrie is Mr. Clutch, but those young fellas don't want to accept that Kyrie is Mr. Clutch. Yeah, they give him the ball. Kyrie does his things, but that team is not all in. They're not all bought in with this talent, and I think that's going to hurt them. Boston is not the same team they were last year. They are better on paper, but as far as the way they play, the chemistry, I don't like what I see. I think the Sixers have surpassed them. Now, here's the interesting thing. I thought eventually Milwaukee will come back to reality with their shooting, and they haven't. I thought the tallest two-guard in NBA history, in Brook Lopez, will come back down to reality. He has not. Now they added Mirotic. Mirotic is a legit shooter, but he also rebounds the ball. So now you added a high-level talent to go along with Giannis. So I think they will stay up there. But I really think the Sixers have surpassed Boston and Toronto.
Marc Jackson, and, of course, Sixers pre- and post-game. It's Denver tonight. It's L.A. on Sunday. It's Boston. We'll be able to find out. They got Boston on Tuesday and then the Knicks before the All-Star break. We'll see if the buyout market brings anything. And Marc Jackson, kind enough to join us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it, pal.
Thanks, Mark.
Good being with y'all guys. Have a good one.